Hey my friends, Sam Haymart for Test Driven TV. Today I've got something pretty special, I think. This is a 2016 Fiat 500C, which means convertible, although it doesn't quite look like one from this angle. And it's the Abarth, the high performance version. I've been really waiting a long time to drive one of these, and that's about to happen. Now I got to talk about the styling for just a minute here before we get out on the drive. This car pretty much explains itself. It's reminiscent, retro of the Fiat 500 that was back in the old days. Of course, that was a rear engine car. And when Fiat bought Chrysler, it really gave us the opportunity to have a few cars that we never really would have otherwise gotten, because Fiat could use the Chrysler dealership network to bring cars in like this. And so we've got the 500 here. The Abarth has a number of features on it that set it apart from the standard 500. One of these is a lower front fascia that's a little bit different. The inlets on either side, both on the passenger and the driver, there's two separate intercoolers for the turbocharger, one on each side behind those grills. And this one actually has a couple of options. It's got the blacked out headlights, the black mirror caps, and it also has the striping down the side. That's not necessarily standard on the Abarth, so you can have a little bit more of a stealth version out there. Now this one right here, this has the 17-inch bronze wheels, a +1 upgrade. I really like the way they look. They really sort of plant this thing and give it a little bit more of a pugnacious look, I think. Now you see how the convertible top works on this thing. It's just like a roll top desk, canvas top, slides all the way open. Now I'll point out, this is as low as it comes down, so it does block your view from that rear view mirror up there. Now the back of the Abarth, also different than the regular 500. You've got big dual exhausts down here, and you're going to hear those here in a minute. This thing's got a pretty raspy sound from those dual exhausts. You've got a completely different rear fascia back here, very sporting. Now one thing I do want to point out here is, because we do have the convertible, opening the trunk when the top's down is a little bit different. When you pop it here, it actually has to open that top out of the way a little bit for you. Then you can get in. In spite of the fact this car has one of the smallest footprints of anything you can buy right now, this interior actually feels pretty spacious, at least if you're sitting out front. And they've made it fun. As you can see, I've got a body color panel up here, and the overall design and the switchgear, everything about this just really, it's meant to be a little bit whimsical, a little bit fun. And it's comfortable for the most part. Here in the driver's seat, these are nice sports seats. You sit up high, you almost have sort of an SUV sort of feel sitting here. And in this particular vehicle, I've got a lot of nice accents going on. These seats have red stripe, they've got red stitching. I've also got red stitching on the steering wheel and up here on the instrument cluster, and the Abarth logo here in the center of the steering wheel. And because this is the Abarth, I've got a turbo boost gauge over here, which is kind of a nice little touch. And there's a sport button here, which is kind of silly because, I don't know, a car like this with a sport button, it's like, you know, computers in the 1990s, they had the turbo button on them. Why wouldn't you want that, right? But all kidding aside, they've done a pretty nice job making this car feel like it's a little bit more substantial from behind the wheel than the microcar that it actually is. These are manually adjustable seats. I do find them pretty comfortable, and I'm glad they're cloth, because especially here in the humid summer, they're very breathable. Now, space, as I said, I think it's pretty good. Headroom, with or without this convertible top, it's wide open above me, but when it's closed, plenty of room. Now, the back seat back there, a little bit more cramped. It's not as bad as you'd think, but it is a pretty compact space. And the trunk as well, because this isn't the coupe with the hatch where you can fold the seat down and get the full openness. It is a pretty small trunk space back there. And when it comes to a spare tire, there isn't one. You've got an inflator, sort of an emergency get yourself out of trouble kit, which is fine as long as you don't actually hurt your tire. There isn't a lot of storage here. That is one thing I will point out. There are a couple little areas down here to stuff a thing or two. There's plenty of cup holders, and they're down low. It makes sense down there, but there's no center console storage here. They do have armrests here, so you do have something to rest your arm on, but there isn't anything to put anything in down there, so storage is at a minimum. In the big picture, though, I really do like this interior. I give it 4 out of 5 stars. The infotainment system here isn't really top of the line. I'd say there is no navigation, but it does have the Beats audio. It's a pretty simple device, not a lot of controls. As you can see here, you can sort of hunt and peck around here and get your standard 3 food groups when it comes to your sources, but it's also got a couple of other features here which make it kind of cool. It's easy to use on the go, I will say that. It's not overly complex, and really for this car you really don't want a lot of complexity. The Beats audio sounds absolutely great. Now the price on this particular system was a $700 upgrade, and at that price I would expect navigation to be in there, given the fact that there's TomTom, you can get it free on your phone. There's no reason they can't throw it in anymore, but overall I'm pretty impressed, not only because it sounds good, but because it's easy to use, and it really just fits the personality of this car because it's simple. So I give it 4 out of 5 stars. Under the hood is a 1.4-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine, and ours made it to an optional 6-speed AZIN heavy-duty automatic transmission. It has 160 horsepower and 183 pound-feet of torque. Fuel economy is rated by the EPA at 24 mpg city, 32 mpg highway, and 27 mpg combined. Alright guys, got the top down. I'm ready to go for a drive. Got a nice sound, you can hear that. All right, now it's time for the real deal. Woo! Hear that pop? This thing crackles and pops. Nice, huh? Now I am going up a hill, so that's why it's sounding like it's revving a little bit long, because it is. But I am in sport mode, so I'm going to put this down in manual shift gate, and woo! This is sweet. It's got a rev matching feature with that transmission. Woo! That's got a beautiful sound to it, I must declare. Yeah, I could listen to this all day long, I think. And that's the difference between this and some other cars. This has a sound. Some cars have noise. Big difference. Whew. Whew. All right, so this is a sweet little motor. It's not the most powerful thing in the world. And the coupe, the non-convertible version, is a little bit lighter, so it would be a little bit quicker. And even though this is a very good automatic, I think for my money I'd probably go for the manual. That's just my preference. Now, in my week driving this thing, I can tell you that I've gotten actually pretty good gas mileage in spite of all this hairy-carry driving. And in the week combined, I've got 25, which, considering all the hot footing I've done, I think is pretty good. Not bad. So overall, I think this is a pretty well put together powertrain. The 6-speed automatic, even though it's not my preference, is a good automatic for this car. Therefore, I put powertrain score at 4 or 5 stars. When it comes to handling, as you'd expect, this car is very tight and it's very agile, and therefore a lot of fun. And this actually handles a little bit tighter than the regular Abarth because it has the 17-inch wheels and the lower profile tires. They're actually wider, 205 section P0 Neros. They're very sticky, although they can be pushed beyond their stick point pretty easily with this car, which I found out a few times up here. But they're very predictable, a nice feeling tire on this car. I think they're definitely worth the upgrade. One thing I will point out is the steering on this car is actually heavier, a little bit slower than I might have expected it to be. It takes every bit of muscle in my arms to wrestle this thing around up here, which is not a bad thing. It's driver involvement, right? That's not going to do it. Oh well. Whew. Now this car is very light on its feet, so if you hit some gravel or sand on the road, it will tend to get a little bit squirrely on you, but the stability control does step in. So what do I think? Well, I love the way the chassis is tuned. It's very flingable, it's a lot of fun, it's very stiffly sprung, and these wheels definitely accentuate that. To a fault, in fact. The fact that we are in a convertible body structure here, it does have a little bit of cowl shake, even though it has a little bit more framework than most convertibles, still get a little bit of shake. And that's mainly because we do have quite stiff a suspension here. But I'm pretty pleased with it overall. And of course, I can't leave the chassis and handling and ride and drive part of this without talking about the fact that this convertible top, no buffeting. Very little buffeting, especially at speed. You can hold a conversation in here just like we are right now. Whew, and it's all good. So chassis, I give 4 out of 5 stars. In all of my reviews, I always talk about the quality because it's a very important thing when you're buying a car. And here, I was pretty impressed overall. Most of the things that you look at, like paint finish, very good. Interior materials, I thought they were actually better than I expected for the entry-level price of this car, which is actually well below $20,000. There were a few areas where some of the trims and pieces and parts didn't quite fit right, and particularly on the rougher roads, they got a lot of rattling and creaking in the body structure, and that's something that it goes to quality. So quality comes in at 4 or 5 stars. On the matter of safety, this car is not considered a top safety pick or a top safety pick plus from the IIHS, and that's because this car was really designed and came on the market well before that new small overlap crash test was implemented to get that title. And as you can see here, it does get a poor rating on that test, but it does get good on the rest. The other reason it's not is because it doesn't have a crash prevention system available as an option. All right, my friends, wrapping it up for this car, one of the things about living in the desert here is in the summertime it can be pouring down rain and it can be sunny and hot all in the same day, and that's exactly what's been going on here during our video shoot. Now, I really like this car. I think that was pretty obvious from my driving experience, and I like it so much it goes on my I'd buy it list for 2016. I really would buy one. I would, though, go for the coupe because it's a little bit lighter, a little bit tighter, and you give up a little bit of performance with the extra weight here as well as some structural rigidity. So I'd go for that, plus I'd probably do the manual transmission, just my personal preference. It is a good automatic for this car, but I just like a stick shift in a car like this. Now looking at the specs here, we're right around $33,000. Quite a few little options on this one. You can get it for a little bit less. When I look at the value, I look at the big picture here, and even though this car isn't perfect and it makes it on the I'd buy list, you know, it just has a few little rough edges here that we talked about, and so I put value at 4 stars. And when you put that in with everything else we've already talked about, we're at 4 stars for the review. I'm Sam Haymart for Test Driven TV. I hope you enjoyed the ride. Little secret, when we test a car each week, when we have a car in our office, we give it a code name. Sometimes it's a good one, sometimes it's not so good, so we don't always share them with you. But this one's name was Pac-Man. Well, look at it, for the obvious reasons, Pac-Man. Now there was a little bit of a debate because it was going to be Luigi or it was going to be Pac-Man. Luigi, of course, being the Fiat 500 in the Cars movie, and he was yellow, so it really sort of fit there, but well, this thing's just a little more rambunctious, I think, than Luigi. Even Luigi was kind of on the edge, but this car really is a little bit over that. So it ended up being Pac-Man, at least to me. Anyway, if you like the test drive you just saw, click on the link right here on your screen and subscribe to our YouTube channel because we do test drive 1 to 2 cars a week. Plus, we have a new video almost every other day. There's always something new. So stay tuned.